On the battlefields of Troy, there are many great heroes doing battle, from the clever Odysseus, to the mighty Ajax the Greater, to the nigh invincible Achilles, and many others in between. A lesser known of these heroes, and one who features heavily in Homer's Iliad, is the uncrowned King of Argos, Diomedes. No tale recounts his heroism better than the 5th book of the Iliad, where Diomedes does battle with the gods themselves. Though calling it a battle would be much too kind to the Olympians that he faced off against. Now though, let's start a bit earlier. The book begins after Diomedes was injured in battle with a Trojan warrior, despite which Athena descends onto the battlefield and grants him a blistering boon. His helm and shield become alight with fire brighter than the sun, and with her guidance he was sent into the fray. Diomedes, carrying this boon, proceeded to march through the Trojan forces, throwing them every which way like a toddler among a Lego city. All the while, Athena is informing Diomedes of exactly the extent of her boon. His spirit is rallied and raised to be among the greatest of heroes, and the veil of mortality is pulled from his eyes, granting him the ability to tell the gods and Trojans apart on the battlefield, upon which Athena warns him of fighting the gods, with the exception of Aphrodite, assumedly because Aphrodite has the combat prowess of a rabbit or something. That information comes very relevant when Diomedes injures Aeneas, while carving his way through the Trojan ranks like a 1,000-degree knife. Aphrodite, unwilling to watch Aeneas fall, and because he finds Rome or something later, begins to lift Aeneas from the battlefield, only for Diomedes to lock his target. Seeing her interference, Diomedes throws his spear, piercing the immortal's arm and causing her to drop Aeneas back to the battlefield. Diomedes 1, gods 0. Where Aeneas fell, Diomedes went in for the kill, only to find his second divine foe, Apollo, who deflected his 3 advances with a burning shield before turning the blade towards Diomedes himself. Daunted by this god's resolve, Diomedes wisely stepped back from the conflict, especially after Apollo told him, "Back off, you're a human, I'm a god." Diomedes won, gods won. A little later in the conflict, after several more Trojans met their end at the hands of Diomedes, and he was sitting trying to patch his wounds from the battle, Athena returned to him, disguised. You see, Ares had gathered onto the battlefield and was starting to turn the tides of battle against the Greeks. Athena was there to provoke Diomedes into fighting Ares. However, Diomedes, with his godlike cunning, was quick enough to realize who was talking to him, and discussed her own words with him, knowing that he was not to fight the gods, for that task would be foolish. Hearing that, Athena spoke with Diomedes and told him that certainly he could fight Ares. Now, while I would love to recount the tale as some epic clash between god and man that split mountains and tore the land asunder, that would be giving Ares much too much credit. Diomedes, with his boon from Athena, merely plunged his sword deep into Ares' gut, as he had so many Trojans over the course of the war, and dealt such pain to the god that he fled from the fray and returned to Olympus, leaving the Greek warrior standing with an ichor-drenched blade and victory over another god. Final result, Diomedes 2, gods 1. And that is where the outright clashing between mortals and divine being ends in the Iliad. The conflict returning to the heroes on both sides fighting against one another, until Achilles pisses off a river and fights it. But that's a story I've already told. So Myth Seekers, this is where this episode ends. Until next time!
Next time on Mythominutes, a young warrior draws a blade from a stone, becoming the King of England.